This prospect has been quietly dominating over in Finland as he is the league's leading playoff scorer through 3 games at the age of 20 years old, and he's going to be in North America next season. We have to dive into this insanity that's happening over there. Plus, David Reinbacher, we got to talk about his debut game for the Laval Rocket, the impact it has. Plus, Quinn Hughes, one of the NHL's top defensemen, has some great praise for Lane Hutson, all coming up on this episode of Habs Digest. Jesse, let's get straight into what Quinn Hughes had to say about Lane Hutson. Now, of course, the Habs, part of their West Coast road trip, they made a little pit stop in Vancouver, and well, Anthony Maltino took that opportunity to ask Quinn Hughes a very interesting question. He said, well, what's the biggest hurdle transitioning from the NCAA to the NHL as an offensive defenseman? And Quinn kind of giggled. You could see he said he knew who Maltino was talking about, but he basically said it's not about how good you are at 20 or 21. Trust your teammates, keep grinding. He said that's what he tells his brother Luke Hughes. It's about how good you are at 25 or 26. And he goes on to say, without Martino even saying Lane Hutson's name, Quinn says, I think Lane will be fine. I think he'll do great. What awesome praise from a guy who certainly has some of the closest comparisons to Lane Hutson.
Yeah, and these are the words that it really matters from the most, because this is a player who really kind of understands, what Lane is up against and the type of skill he has, and you have to feel, if you are Lane, a young player to looking out to carve out a big role here in the NHL, to get this type of respect kind of early on is just huge, right? And you have to feel like Lane, like his confidence is already through the roof. He doesn't need to hear this, but it's almost nice. I feel like for what he's doing, he almost doesn't get enough of that hype for really the historic numbers, putting up some of the best numbers since Brian Leetch in the NCAA. Like, this is just huge, right? So I think that, definitely Quinn is fully on the mark by saying, again, that it's part of the process, and to really trust that, and everything. And it's definitely the long-term game, but, definitely I feel like Lane, he's not going to take too much time to really hit the ground running.
I don't think so, and I think Quinn kind of had that same feeling. Like, when you see a guy with talent, that talent is going to translate. And for all the issues Lane Hutson has, maybe defensively, some people saying, like, well, his skating's maybe not at that elite level. Doesn't matter. The talent is talent. Really excited to see what he can do. But yeah, like we said, when you get praise from a guy like Quinn Hughes up there near the top of the NHL in points as a defenseman, well, hey, I think that's nothing but a good thing. Let's move on second to David Reinbacher, and these upcoming games for Laval are absolutely crucial. Now, depending on when you're watching this video, it could be before their game versus Belleville on March 22nd, or it could be after. Regardless, we got to talk about the impact that David Reinbacher has on this roster. So, of course, March 22nd, this is going to be David Reinbacher's Rocket debut, or again, if you're watching after, maybe he already made it, and you can talk down in the comments about how he did. But Jesse, right now, the Rocket need him more than ever. This is extremely welcome news, as they are up against a stretch now of games almost exclusively against the North Division over the next week or two, with tonight's game being against Belleville, tomorrow's game, I believe, being against Belleville, and also having a game against the Marlies soon. The Rocket are currently 3 points out of a playoff spot. They just need to get to 5th in the division, if you guys didn't know. They're 3 points out, but they've played more games than both the Marlies and the Senators. So David Reinbacher is going to be needed, Jesse, but I'm super excited to see how he does. And my prediction right now is after a game or two of settling in, we're going to see this guy basically demand 20 minutes a night. I think he's going to be that kind of mature, great, solid presence for this team.
Absolutely, right away. And, you have to feel like it almost feels like destiny a little bit. The fact that he's coming here right at the time where we have a stretch 3 games over the next 3 days to really, decide Laval's future here if they're making the playoffs, right? So David Reinbacher coming over with basically a chance to really save the Laval Rockets team, right? Like, this is going to give them such a big boost at the time that they really need it the most. So obviously a lot of pressure, but that's why they selected him, is they wanted somebody that could handle this, first game, coming North American ice, and it really, the stakes being up there right from the beginning, right? But it definitely seems, being such a cool and collected guy that he is, that he's definitely going to be up for the task.
Yeah, that's for sure. Now, I put that expectation out there. If he doesn't reach that, that's okay, because we all know he's 19. He's one of, if not the youngest player on this team. I'm not sure. I believe he might actually be the youngest. And he's coming in with the world of expectations on his shoulders, whether it's from the media, whether it's from himself, his family, whoever. People are expecting him to do good. So while I think that's what's going to happen, if it takes him a while, we got to also remember to be cautious. But At the same time, Jesse, when we've watched Reinbacher play before, even in that preseason, he's the kind of guy that just doesn't seem to crack under pressure. He's the kind of guy, he's chill, he goes out there and he plays a solid game every night. One thing right now before we hop into the playoffs for the Rocket, David Reinbacher, I'm just going to do the prediction. Come playoff time, is he going to be over or under 18 minutes per game for this team? I am calling it now, like I said earlier. I think Reinbacher is going to push 20. I'm going to say above 18. I want you guys to answer that in the comments down below as well. I mean, I don't want to put too much pressure on him, but I think 18 minutes per game is a solid line because, again, I just feel like his solidity is going to be so welcome in this young lineup.
Yeah, he's going to be eating up minutes real quick. Now, we have to remember, he looked really good with the Montreal Canadiens in training camp. He looked very comfortable. Could have played in Montreal here under different circumstances and probably had a pretty respectable year. So that being said, if he could do that in Montreal, have that solid training camp, I expect with another year of experience and as well being kind of put in a position to succeed as well, that he's just going to be super comfortable on the ice. I think that's one thing we're going to see. And it's great to see. It's kind of like, I know it's a different position, but he almost reminds me of Samuel Montembeault in the way that they just kind of take things a little bit easy. Like they don't get rattled too quick, right? It's often those players that can kind of keep their composure, not get too high, not get too low on themselves when things are kind of coming. Those are the players that are able to kind of stay in the moment, kind of get out of their head when they're making some mistakes. So David Reinbacher for me is that type of guy. You need that type of attitude to really succeed in the, in the NHL, in the AHL, is, to really have some fun out there. But at the same time, if you do have a mistake, to kind of shake it off, and at the same time, just come to the rink every day ready to play.
Yeah, and hey, if he does make mistakes, if he doesn't play well, we're still going to root for him. Going to be no David Reinbacher slander here. And hey, you're comparing to Montembeault, maybe David Reinbacher will learn something and get some snacks to help his game. Final topic of the video. This is what you guys have been waiting for. I want to talk a bit about Oliver Kapanen, and he has been quietly amazing. Now, you guys probably know his name. He was drafted back in 2021. He was the last pick of the second round, 64th overall, and well, we got some news for you. He has been amazing. Just take a look at the 2023-24 season at the bottom for Kalpa in the Finnish Liiga. 34 points in 51 games, including 14 goals as a 20-year-old. But the big thing here is the playoffs. So far in 3 playoff games, well, I'll show this first. He is tied for the lead for most points in the playoffs so far. But guess what? The guy who's tied with him, well, they already have 5 games played. And as you can see, Kapanen's tied for the youngest guy on this list. He has been performing absolutely amazingly. And Grant McCagg, who was watching the game, I mean, some of you might like him, some of you might not. That's fine. But regardless, his information here is very true. Watching Kapanen play against Ilves in this playoff series, he has been outstanding. Very true if you take a look at any of the game clips. Kapanen has set up a ton of glorious chances. And of course, right after he tweeted that, Kapanen tied the game. Each of his 3 playoff games so far, Jesse, he has 1 goal, 1 assist. And if we take a look at his scouting report from Dobber Prospects from earlier this year, well, actually back in 2023, he's an all-around center who can play the power play and the penalty kill, has above-average skating, excels with his ability to be elusive in tight areas using his shifty footwork, and by all projections, he should be in Laval next season. I feel like we always like to talk about some slept-on Habs prospects, but this is one guy that I truly think is not getting the respect that he deserves for doing what he's doing in such a talented league.
Yeah, another prospect right now that is really peaking at the right time. And again, at center, we were just talking about Owen Beck just yesterday, right? Somebody who he might be competing with very shortly. But if we're looking at those 6 points in 3 games, like, man, we need to get Oliver Kapanen over to the Laval Rocket right away. Obviously, nice to see performing when it matters the most in the playoffs. But yeah, that's it. You mentioned the great speed, which obviously fits really well with our game, the offensive touch, which we're looking for more of in our top 9. And then having a great shot as well. Now, those are definitely some really great skills. And we're looking at a guy that maybe in the future, when he comes over to Montreal, maybe getting some minutes on the second power play unit. I could see a guy that could really contribute there. We need a little bit of help with our second power play unit. So, yeah, you have to feel like he's going to be competing with Beck maybe in the near future for that 3C role with the Montreal Canadiens. And we've seen in the past sometimes where it's like maybe it might even be possible that they might play on the same line. Beck being such a great center, maybe Kapanen, it's okay to have 2 guys that can play center. Montreal has done that lots in the past, obviously with Monahan and Dach, and having them on the same line together there. It opens up lots of great opportunities. But again, our center depth, just a lot of these guys kind of doing really well for their age in their respective leagues right now. Basically, if you're the management for the Montreal Canadiens, you have to be really pleased. It's really all that you can ask. They're giving themselves a really strong fighting chance to really make some noise with the big club soon enough.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting to see what he can do in North America because, again, the game is different once you come over here, and some players can adapt really well. Some players take quite a long time to figure it out. I mean, just look at Slav and maybe Reinbacher, who knows? But the thing is, Oliver Kapanen, like that offensive upside, that scoring upside, is not necessarily something that. Like, yeah, he was pegged as having a decent offensive upside, but for his playoff performance so far, like, not only the goal scoring, but especially the passing prowess that has gradually improved as the season's gone on, he's improved at a pretty good rate. And there are very few players who are younger than him in the Liga that have more points like in this season. There are a number, maybe 10, something like that. I couldn't find the exact number, but Kapanen is straight up one of the top scorers for his age in the league. He is leading the league in playoff scoring for his team. And while, yeah, I mean, ideally, I'd love for him to be with the Montreal Canadiens sometime in the future. He's still 20. He's still growing. Can't wait to see what he does in Laval next season. Have you guys watched much Oliver Kapanen? Let us know down below. And if you haven't, I suggest you go search out some highlights. Take a look at his stats and some of his clips for yourself because I got a feeling you might be a bit more impressed than you think. But that'll do it for now for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Help us push for 12,000. If you're still watching now and haven't hit that button, do it. We'd really appreciate it. I'm Josh Goss, my co-host Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.